Some claim that the age of a true gentleman is far behind us, but here at 284 Media, we disagree. He may appear in different guises today, but the values and ideals that make him a gent still stand. Gentlemen, aspiring gentlemen, and of course, our partners that hold us down. I'm Ron Grant. Welcome to Season 3 of The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman, a show poised to help guide modern-day men into 21st century distinguished gentlemen. Don't worry, it doesn't always involve suits and bow ties, but raw, real-life lessons that translate to grounded, community-minded, well-rounded men. Thank you all for taking this amazing journey with me. As promised, this season, we take you on an entirely different journey. From chefs to dancers, construction experts, we're heading outside in the field to share the journey of some of the BVI's best and brightest, from East End to West End, Virgin Gorda, Anegada, and not forgetting Jos Van Dyke. Our Virgin Islands gentlemen are doing the damn thing, and I'm super proud. The art of communication is key, controlling the narrative, tailoring messages to help the world understand and develop content is an art. My guest today is a skilled communication specialist and writer. He's a community-minded man and contributes to the territory in various capacities. Whatever he does, he always strives to deliver the best work possible. A perfectionist and consummate professional. The ones that know him well says he's one of the funniest and most caring persons you'll ever come across, always cloning, yet one of the most brutally honest people you'll ever meet. He tells you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. His heart is pure, and we should be honored to have him amongst us. I must admit, beautiful people, that with all that's going on around us, it is absolutely refreshing to come across young men of quality. Temulji Hughes is hands down a young man of quality. Amidst all of his accomplishments, he has had his battles with perhaps one of the most remarkable testimonies. Ladies and gentlemen, I am simply honored to share my set with one of the most talented human beings I know, Mr. Temulji Hughes, a friend and fighter. He's been fighting battles some of us could never really imagine, yet pours his soul into his work with style and grace. We talk beating cancer, second chances, and the resilience that makes him king. I guarantee you, you don't want to miss this one. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. You're watching The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman. Let's go.
So you're saying I can ask this cat any question?
The cat is connected to the computer. You just type in the question, it will read his mind. There the answer comes.
You're the man! I've been looking for this for weeks.
Viewers, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Again, I am honored. Temulji, first of all, thank you, and welcome to The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman.
Thank you, Ron. I don't know how I will live up to that introduction, but I'll do my best.
So today's show, ladies and gentlemen, at least from my attire, is in celebration of the mighty, mighty Scatliff. We call ourselves Striders. I was honored to receive a medallion, a distinguished medallion, earlier this year after delivering the keynote address to some graduates. Now, I know many of you are probably sick and tired of hearing students, alumni who have gone through the Alta Scatliff Primary School talk about how amazing the experience is. But both Temulji and I were in class together at the Alta Scatliff Primary School. Temulji, having been a product of the mighty Scatliff and going through that institution, having been a strider, having learned the art of competition, all that good stuff, what did that mean to you?
In reflecting on my experience at Althea Scatliff, as you said, competition, it stands out. Because there are people tend to not want their children to be exposed to an institution that is big. But it really forces you to be the best, to push a little harder, to stand out in a crowd that you could so easily become someone on the wall that no one really pays attention to. Yeah. So I think that experience really pushed me to be a whole person, now that I'm reflecting on it. I wasn't the top of the class. And now that I'm looking back at the experience, I think I perhaps stood out where I needed to. But now it doesn't really it didn't really make sense back then, but now and today I can honestly say those experiences really molded me. I was a talker in class. I never shut up.
Go figure.
And now I'm like, oh, so that's the reason. So I had my mother. I remember one time there was the parent-teacher conference, and as usual, the comment that the teacher made was, he's a good student, but he talks too much.
Wow.
And Mavis decided that I should kneel in front of all the students in the class and apologize for talking that much and disturbing the class. And today, she's like, when are you going to talk again? I'm like, remember when in class 5 you did that?
That's a good one.
So,
and not only talking, but developing a career in speech and writing and the art of communication. You are a host as well.
Yes.
You lend your voice to a lot of the issues that are pertinent in our territory, particularly on Saturdays.
Yes.
A host, just really developing content and allowing persons who may have a difficult time lending their voice and articulating what they're trying to say. You help them with that. So it's funny that a talkative student, you're asked to be quiet, is now you see the connection between that.
I see it, and I hope that teachers today in the classroom recognize and utilize the skills of students who may be perhaps talkative. You never really know where they could end up. So I would encourage them to just craft that and develop that talent, because someone who could articulate themselves goes pretty far in life, I think.
That's what's up. In the intro, I mentioned that you have fought battles, and in fighting those battles, and I'll be very honest, it almost reminds me of the Chadwick Boseman story, because we see persons on an everyday basis, we see them in their roles, you know, just going about their merry way, yet we don't understand or have any inkling truly what those individuals may be going through. You have been fighting cancer and were recently diagnosed a year ago, September 11th, I believe, with a stage 4 cancer. I remember visiting you in the hospital at one point, and one of the most beautiful things I took away from that experience was the fact that while I felt and I went to, in my own way, lift you up, you in turn, in your own way, jokingly, as always, you know, turned the conversation and gave me much cheer. Tell us about that journey. 1 year later, you're here with us. Tell us about the road.
The road, it was quite a journey. When I think back on that experience, as you said, the Chadwick Boseman story really stands out. I remember I was going through changes in my appearance, and I never really knew why. The doctors didn't know why as well. And one day I remember going into a bank, and I was asked to present my identification, and the teller could not recognize me based on the picture. And she asked me a series of questions, just trying to, I guess, connect the dots to see if I was the person. And that day was really rough.
Wow.
Because each day you wake up and you look in the mirror and you're slowly not recognizing the person that you're seeing, and you don't really have the answers. And I broke down in the bank because it was really tough. And at that point, I was just like, never mind, took the ID and left.
Wow. And
in retrospect, you really never know what someone is going through. So moving forward, like you said, on September 11th, well, before that, September 3rd, I was airlifted to Florida so that they could do a series of tests. And on September 11th, they came back into the room. It was probably all the doctors in the hospital, I would say. So by them walking into the room, I looked at my mother and I said, Lord, I'm done with it. Because for me, humor really just gets me through it. And they came back. They came back and they said, Mr. Hughes, I'm afraid you have cancer. And there was no breaking down. There was none of that. It was just an overwhelming sense of peace. And I just said, I said, okay, so what do we do from here? how do we beat this? Because recognizing that it was COVID times, I don't think that the contributions that I have made on the world, I deserve no COVID funeral. I don't need protocols. I don't need protocols to be absorbed.
With only what, a handful of people who
I
could
know,
come?
no, not by no great
That is
side.
funny.
I need, that was really
Solar
something that kept me going. Like, no COVID funerals. So that's really something that kept me going. But throughout the journey, it was a series of tests. And I remember on September 11th, once it diagnosed me, then move on to staging. And I was just expecting a stage 1, stage 2. And I had downloaded an app that would just send you positive messages at random times. And when it came back to the staging, and she said, stage 4, immediately my phone vibrated. And after I checked my phone, there was a message from the app that said, if it's not, everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. And again, that overwhelming sense of peace really just cemented in my mind that everything will be okay and I would beat it. It was an experience that really tested me, pushed me, stretched me in ways unimaginable. Because like you see in the movies, it's everything.
Yeah.
It hurts. You're again going through changes that you're not really prepared for. And in my research, like I watched hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos, and I never saw someone that looked like me. I never saw someone that looked like me. And
did that scare you or bother you?
It really made me question why there wasn't. If we're not as open to sharing our stories, I really didn't know. But I knew that, I guess in my own spirit, I had a responsibility then to ensure that I utilize my experience to at least help one person, because I did not have that.
Okay.
And I think if we're going through these experiences in life, we should be able or should utilize that experience to help someone else along the way.
Were you always, and you said from the inception, how are we going to beat this? Were you always positive? Were you always looking forward for the silver lining? Was there any point in your diagnosis or your treatment that you dealt or suffered from depression? And if so, how did you deal with that?
Oh yeah, I went through a really bad state of depression around the start of the year, because it was Christmas Day, and I had not too long ago been released from the hospital. And once you're released, or once you go through the treatment, there's a period of time where all your levels drop, your red blood cells, your white count, all that drops. And you become very weak, and you're very prone to infections. And on Christmas Day, that was happening to me. I was feeling it happening. And I was like, not on Christmas Day. Not on Christmas Day. My mother and my friend were there. And I was like, no, that's not. So I fought it off for at least 3 days.
Wow.
And then it was around New Year's Eve, I collapsed in the bathroom, and I had to be rushed to the hospital. And I had gotten pretty weak, but it was at a point where I could stand up and then move around. I remember the fireworks going on, and I'm watching it from my hospital bed. And it really broke me at that point, because I was really just over it.
Okay.
And I just cut off communication with everyone to kind of gather my mind space, because I think it was important that I had to be good, because I was the one going through it.
Yeah.
And although I cut the communication off, I think people need to understand.
Speak to that.
That the journey that you're on, not everyone can go with you all the way. And that's okay. Because at the end of the day, you're the one going through it. And it's okay to step back, gather yourself, and then in order to move forward. And some people didn't get that. Some people didn't get that. Some people felt that as though you had a responsibility to them. And really, I had a responsibility to myself to make it through this experience. So whatever, I think that's probably one of the greatest lessons I learned through this journey.
I'm really happy that you mentioned that, because one of the questions I was going to ask you, what exactly would you say to persons, whether it is family, friends, co-workers, who are so adamant in trying to be there for someone who's fighting a battle, but not understanding that perhaps at some point that person may need space. I must ask you though, because you've always been such a private individual, how did you maneuver your support group, meaning close family and friends wanting so bad to be there for you, but you in your own way having to, like you said, deal with it? How important is a support group, and how did you maneuver through that? How did the support group help you? Or at times maybe you had to say, back up a bit.
Your support group through anything is essential. I didn't immediately tell anyone. It was my mother and I that were there, and she really was my backbone through it all. I remember one time I was on the verge of dying, literally. Was on the verge of dying, and I saw my grandmother and my grandfather telling me to come.
Wow.
They were saying, hey, come. And I was going. And I remember I heard my mother say, heal him, Lord, heal him, Lord. And it snapped. And I was like, that's the voice I need to be going to. I heard my mother's voice. So I don't know what the outcome would have been had I not listened to her voice. But again, you have that. I had that support, and she never moved. I saw my mother every single day for 9 months. And apart from my mother, I think my entire family as well. Because the thing with cancer for me, it's not just one person going through it. Yes, you're going through it physically, but it affects your entire circle. And my siblings, my stepfather, they as well had to go through that experience. And you have your friends. I didn't tell every single friend. I had my very close circle who were there. My friend Odein, my friend Akil. I won't start to call names,
of course,
because that gets you in trouble. But the support system is crucial to getting through it. And again, not everyone was allowed on that journey with me, because I really had to make sure that I protected my peace in order to get through it.
Indeed. My friend, we are absolutely happy that you listened to the right voice. We're absolutely grateful that you are with us and that you're in recovery. I thank you so much for sharing your very intimate story with us. I think it is important as we traverse through our daily lives to understand that our testimonies are essentially what continue to lift someone up. I have to go back a couple years. You lost your brother, and for many of us, grief is handled differently. There are stages of grief. I saw you as being that support to your family in a number of different ways, but what did the loss of your brother in that level of tragedy teach you and help you to understand? And may in some way have prepared you or not for the battle of cancer that you would later face?
My brother's death, my brother, Michael Stevens, everyone knows him as Pupdi. Waking up to that phone call, asking if you heard, I don't wish that on anyone. But at the same time, I remember visiting this the scene and having to be strong for everyone else that was around me. And the weight of that, for that period of time, it was very strong. And it wasn't until after the fact that I just really had my moment to break down and grieve the loss, because sometimes you have to accept the position that you are in life.
Absolutely.
And be the shoulder for everyone else. And sadly, get through the moment without dealing with or unpacking that baggage. And for whatever reason, some people don't unpack it. And that is very unhealthy to me, because it affects other areas of your life. But in retrospect, I think the fact that I had to be strong or be that shoulder for everyone really prepared me unknowingly for the journey that was ahead, because I had to be strong in moments where I perhaps wanted to give up. And now that I'm thinking about it, that really prepared me for the other journey that I had to go.
Amazing. We have a lot of people. In doing my research, I spoke to a number of people who whether worked with you or interacted with you, some of your close friends, and they had some amazing attributes to speak about you. Community-minded, of course, a true distinguished gentleman, hence you're here. Fun-loving, funny, very honest and brutal person. Know that you have experienced what many of us would consider the worst of the worst, having been through it, and thankful for the depth of gratitude. Where do you see, hindsight being, of course, 2020, Temulji moving forward?
You know, I think I've decided not to plan, because I think the life that I imagine for myself is going in a totally opposite direction. And it wasn't until one day, while in the shower, I said, God, whatever you want me to do in this life, whatever, use me as your instrument. And I don't think that I was prepared for that.
Yeah.
Because I think I didn't want to be moved. So I asked God to be used, not really ready for it. And all these things are happening in your life. And I think if you're asking God to use you, you have to be ready to be used.
Absolutely.
And everything is going on. And I said, but God, I didn't ask for all of this. I didn't ask for all of this. But yeah. I think, no, I'm just being his instrument. I'm using whatever it is that he wants me to do. I acknowledged him, and he's directing my path. And I am confident that whatever it is, it will work out, because it always works out in the end. If it's not the end, it won't work out.
I can absolutely relate to that prayer. There's a prayer that I have recited pretty much all my life, the prayer of Jabez. Oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory, that your hands would be upon me and that you would keep me from evil. And I would say that prayer religiously. And it got to a point in my life where I was like, okay, this is a bit much, this is a bit much, this is a bit much. Wearing a lot of hats, this is pulling me in a lot of different directions. And that prayer came back to me. You've been praying, oh, that you would bless me indeed and enlarge my territory. Well, your territory is enlarged. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle that? And I think it's imperative that even in our sincerity of prayer, understanding that if you ask him earnestly, he will grant you those desires of your heart. But you have to be willing to move. Or stay. You know, when he says what he says.
And I think for me, while going through my experience, I found the saying, God doesn't give you more than you can bear, problematic in my journey.
Why?
I found it problematic because I was seeing a lot of other persons in the Virgin Islands dying from cancer. And I said, God gave it to them, so were they weak? And why is it that the first thing that you say, oh, God doesn't give you more than you can bear? So I say, if I lose my battle, would I be considered weak? Would I be considered a failure? And it weighed heavy on me.
Did you ever think that you would lose your battle to cancer?
Something happens when you're facing death. It's staring you right in the face. And at various points I did think that I would lose my battle. I did think about what life would be like without me, for my family, my friends. And something just kept me going. Something just really kept me going whenever I felt like, okay, this is not it. Once I got to the end of the journey, things just really started going crazy with my body. So I ended up having to do other surgeries, lung surgery and all sorts of things. And at that point, I did think that if it was ever to come up again in that moment, I don't know if I'd want to go through treatment again. And I was okay with that.
Yeah.
But
I was just going to ask, were you okay? Or, had you decided in your heart and your spirit that if you were to lose your battle, that it would be okay with you?
With me, yes.
Okay.
Yes. I know the world would be probably a lot more dull if I wasn't in existence. But I made peace with it. I made peace with it, and I decided that God's will just be done. God's will be done. Mm-hmm.
What do you say to the people that are fighting the same battle? That perhaps sometimes at intervals don't have the strength that you had?
Mm-hmm. I would say to find someone that you can vent to, find someone to get through that moment. If you don't have that person, you can find me.
Okay.
And I will be, I would make it my business to ensure that you get through it. I think we all need somebody at some point in life. And gratefully, I had several persons, and it would be a disservice to the world, of which I am a citizen, to not do that for someone else. It would be a great disservice, and I think each of us needs to just brighten our own corner of the world, because everyone everywhere is going through something that we know absolutely nothing about. And we should not take that lightly. We should not take that lightly.
Amazing. My fellow distinguished gentleman, my lapel brother, I appreciate your honesty, I appreciate your authenticity, and I appreciate you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate you, Temulji, for being exactly who you are. We love you, and we're so happy that you are here with us to tell the story and to really live life in color like no one else can.
Live life in color.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you next week. We've been here with the man himself, Temulji Hughes. You've been watching The Art of a Distinguished Gentleman.